Round of stimulus checks already started going out, but some of you may still be waiting. WPTV News Channel 5's Cameron Leppinger joins us now live with how you can find out when your check will hit the bank. Hey, Cam.
Ashley, good morning. Well, if you're still waiting for that check to hit your bank account, all you have to do is grab your phone right now and go to irs.gov.
We got top news about the fourth stimulus check, Social Security benefits, SSI, SSDI, and even SSA. Deposits were made in just a few days, everybody. The lawmakers have confirmed that many of the low income can expect to receive an extra $100 in benefits. And because Congress has really allocated billions of dollars more towards relief programs, well, it's very good news because something good is happening in Congress. They're making changes, things are happening, and a lot of attention is going on. So the landscape of the United States and both federal and state level was completely changed in the wake of the crisis as millions of families were plunged into poverty or saw their earnings drop dramatically. It led to the U.S. government creating an array of stimulus packages for almost every state that could be distributing some of this money. Virginia's SNAP program, for instance, has received federal approval to release the emergency benefits to the eligible households. And in January, according to the Virginia Department of Social Services, the enhanced benefits are scheduled to be automatically loaded to recipients' EBT transfer cards on the middle of January. These payments are actually going to be worth $1,000, so you can actually get $1,000. The enhanced SNAP benefit is actually made available through a public health emergency declaration that requires government agencies to request an extension of emergency allotment issuances on a month-to-month basis. Even a Texas governor has announced that the Texas Health and Human Services Commission is providing more than $345 million in emergency SNAP food benefits for the month of today. This month is going to get some stimulus cash and going to the people that need it the most. And well, because of this, everybody, the governor said that as we enter the new year, we're proud to continue to support Texans through the extension of emergency SNAP benefits. Texans across the state will be able to access healthy food, take care of their families and loved ones. And so far, all SNAP households will receive a minimum of $95 in emergency allotments. This additional emergency allotment should appear in recipients' accounts by January 31st. And now America's employers still added around 233,000 jobs in December. Evidence that the economy remains healthy, even as the Fed is rapidly rising rates to try to show and slow economic growth in the pace of hiring. And well, the Labor Department said this week that the companies continue to add jobs across the country. The unemployment rate fell again from 3 to 6% and matching a 53-year low. The December jobs report also suggests that the labor market may be cooling in a way that could fight the Fed's fight against high inflation. Last month, the gain was very small in the last 2 years, and it extended even hiring slowdown that began last year. And average hourly pay growth eased to its slowest pace in 16 months. This slowdown could reduce pressure on employers to raise prices to offset their higher labor costs. Other recent data also point to a cooling economy, a measure of business activity and services, finance and restaurants and transportation, contracting in December for the first time since 2020. So what this means is this. Well, economists still foresee a recession in the second half of the year, a consequence of the Fed's succession of sharp rate hikes. And now the central bank's officials have actually projected that those increases will cause the unemployment rate to reach an even 4.6% by year's end. And though the Fed's higher rates have begun to cool inflation from its summertime peak, we're seeing a lot of mortgages, unemployment payments, and auto loans and other business borrowing more expensive. Jerome Powell has even emphasized in recent remarks that the consistency of job-strong growth is that forcing employers to pay raise and keep workers can perpetuate inflation. It's the reason why companies want to raise prices on a higher cost of labor and on customers.
IJA, there can be more work in that regard too. I think that will get us more technical insights, but I think ultimately this will be not a technical decision, but a policy one. And that largely comes down to whether Congress will continue to hold to the user pays principle or seek an alternative means for funding.
Have you considered some sort of toll facility which every vehicle would pay if they had to go through the toll booth? Is that something that's an option?
You know, I grew up in northern Indiana where 8090 is funded as a toll road, and certainly that's something I think we're accustomed to on certain heavily trafficked roads, especially if they were built or maintained with that in mind. I think it's tougher to imagine how that could be implemented on a widespread basis, and so unless we could think of a non-intrusive way to do that, I think it'll be always something that's restricted to more specific and high traffic points, bridges and certain highways. Then
The legislation, along other things with other bills proposed, could still be amended during the current legislative session. House Republicans will have a say in the process, with their own proposal mirroring Holcomb's $1 billion tax relief plan. In a statement, the House Speaker reiterated the House leadership would push for refunds. He said Indiana residents need help now, and Indiana is in a position to give them back their money. In the first week of session, House Republicans will prioritize legislation authorizing another round of automatic taxpayer refunds. Holcomb has proposed that Indiana taxpayers receive a $225 refund. That refund will be in addition to the $125 automatic refund taxpayers received upon filing their 2022 taxes as a result of higher than expected revenues late fiscal year. The governor stated this refund is not like the trillions of federal dollars that are printed out of thin air and pumped into the national economy for months on end. These funds are already earned by taxpayers. Chuck Schumer and West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin released an outline of a tax, climate, and healthcare deal on Wednesday, and what could prove to be a major breakthrough after weeks of negotiations. The proposal would raise an estimated $740 billion with revenues going to fund climate and health initiatives, as well as to reduce the budget deficit. While it would amount to the biggest tax hike in years, it's far removed from the comprehensive progressive revamp of the tax code the Biden administration once hoped for. It remains unclear whether the deal would be backed by the full Democratic caucus in the 50-50 Senate. It would also need to pass the House, while progressives sought a much bigger plan. Democrats are aiming to vote on the so-called reconciliation bill, which needs a simple majority to pass. The bill would direct the government to negotiate with drug makers for lower prices on certain medicines and cap what seniors pay on Medicare for prices each year of $2,000. The measure also requires pharmaceutical companies to rebate Medicare if they raise the price of the prescription more than just account for inflation. Bad news, inflation is continuing to rise, along with the rising cost of living across the country. Lawmakers like Chuck Schumer are aiming to get President Biden's deal passed as soon as possible. But Kirsten Sinema has announced some new changes that she wants to be made.
Americans who believe that they may have to take up arms against their own government in order to accomplish what they think needs to be done. Madam President, all of this speaks to a very, very dangerous moment for American democracy, and in a number of ways it resembles the conditions that existed in Europe in the 1920s and early 1930s, which led to fascism and totalitarianism. In other words, at a time when so many of our people are hurting, many of them no longer believe that in our democratic system, government is capable of responding to their needs, and they are losing faith in our democracy. The people of this country believe, and in my view correctly, that we have a corrupt political system dominated by the wealthy and the powerful, and that we have a rigged economy in which large corporations are seeing huge profits, in some cases